Welcome to This Explainer. Looking into the healthcare and rehab sector recently, we stumbled onto a systemic point of failure that is, well, it's honestly kind of hard to believe in our ultra-connected world. It might actually shock you to learn that the simple act of just answering the phone or replying to a web inquiry, yeah, that's still one of the biggest operational hurdles organizations face today. We're going to dive deep into the data around lead response times, and more importantly, what happens when this lag collides with the behavioral health and addiction treatment space. Because listen, this isn't just about lost revenue. We're talking about patient access, missed admissions, and what happens when someone finally asks for help, only to be met with total silence. Okay, let's start with a foundational rule of lead response, and it's absolutely fascinating. You are literally 100 times more likely to reach a prospect if you contact them within 5 minutes rather than waiting just 30 minutes. And this isn't just a random guess. This comes from a massive academic analysis called the Lead Response Management Study, which tracked over 15,000 leads and 100,000 call attempts. The data paints a crystal clear picture here. Those first 5 minutes, that's your golden window. Miss it, and your chances of making contact just plummet. So speed absolutely dominates. In fact, conversion rates drop by roughly 8 times if you wait just 6 minutes, according to that same study. I mean, really think about that for a second. Just one single minute passing, the tiny difference between minute 5 and minute 6, causes your odds to practically fall off a cliff. The study even found that the odds of just qualifying a lead drop 4 times by going from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Every ticking second you wait, that prospect's attention is shifting. They're opening a new tab, they're dialing a competitor, or they're just losing the motivation that got them to reach out in the very first place. Section 1, the mass of missed leads. So we know this 5-minute rule is absolute gold, right? But how are organizations actually performing in the real world? Well, get ready for a shocking reality check. In an independent test of 1,000 B2B sales teams, a whopping 63.5% of companies never responded to their inbound leads at all. You heard that right. More than 6 out of 10 times, somebody raises their hand, asks for information, and the organization completely ignores them. Poof, down a black hole. Another massive data set looking at over 55 million sales activities found the exact same thing. The vast majority of marketing-generated leads are simply never worked. Now, when companies do manage to respond, independent tests show the average response time is a staggering 42 hours, completely blowing past that 5-minute golden window. Just let that sink in. The optimal window slams shut in 5 minutes, but the average company takes almost 2 whole days just to say hello. Independent tests on hundreds of SaaS companies consistently show these sluggish 40-plus hour averages, with only about 7% of companies managing to hit those critical first 5 minutes. And look, the execution gap here is mostly just manual processes. Leads come in after hours, they sit in some crowded inbox, or they're just waiting around for the morning shift to finally manually dial a number. Section 2, the human cost. But what does all this math actually mean when we step out of standard B2B sales and into the life or death world of behavioral health and addiction treatment? A delayed response for a software demo might just cost you a sale, sure, but in healthcare, a missed call or a 42-hour wait has consequences that are just astronomically higher. Consider this. Up to half of all inbound admissions volume happens on nights, weekends, and holidays. Which makes sense, right? The person calling you at 11 p.m. is probably calling because a crisis happened that very night. Most treatment centers do a fantastic job covering the day shift. But nights, weekends, those tricky minutes between shift changes, that's where the missed calls hide. Without automated systems, the after-hours answer rate for a lot of these facilities is practically zero. And the data backs up how dangerous this is. SAMHSA, the Federal Agency for Substance Abuse and Mental Health, consistently shows that people in crisis have incredibly narrow decision windows. In the industry, it's often called a moment of clarity. And that moment, it might only last a few minutes, and it may literally never return if they hit a voicemail. Think about it. When someone struggling with addiction finally finds the courage to pick up the phone at 2 a.m., they are highly vulnerable. If they get a voicemail greeting, they're not going to leave a message and patiently wait for Monday morning. They hang up. They might dial the next center on their Google search. Or tragically, that window just slams shut and they go back to using. Every single unanswered call is a massive barrier to patient access. We have to remember this isn't just a lost lead in a database. It's a human being, someone exactly like Dave Sickle. Dave is the founder of Blueshirt Media. But years ago, during his own struggle with addiction, he was once a dead lead sitting in a CRM system. Before getting clean over 12 years ago, he reached out for help, didn't hear back, and kept using. He experienced the exact systemic failure we're talking about today. Now, after finding recovery, he actually builds the very systems meant to ensure that no one else's plea for help ever goes unanswered. Dave's story is such a powerful reminder that behind every missed call metric is a real person whose life is hanging in the balance.
Section 3, the AI rescue system.
So how in the world do we bridge the gap between a 42-hour average response time and the urgent, desperate needs of a caller at 2 a.m.? The answer lies in specialized, automated infrastructure that runs 24/7 without the constraints of human staffing, but still handles these inquiries with strict care and protocol. Let's compare a traditional answering service with an AI voice agent. An AI doesn't just take a message and hang up. It identifies itself as AI, qualifies the caller under strict crisis protocols, and can immediately warm transfer them to a real on-call clinician in under 3 seconds. Standard answering services usually just use live operators reading a static script, but a properly configured AI voice agent conducts a structured intake conversation. It verifies insurance, determines the level of care needed, and it does it all transparently. Plus, if it detects active risk language, boom, it instantly triggers immediate human handoff protocols or routes to the 988 suicide and crisis lifeline. But what if the caller hangs up before connecting? Well, a HIPAA-compliant missed call text back system automatically reaches out within 60 seconds. This catches them before they can even dial a competitor. Remember that 1-minute decay in conversion odds we talked about earlier? This solves that exact problem. The automated text is short, it's non-identifying, and it simply acknowledges the missed call while keeping the door wide open. It meets the caller exactly where they are and re-engages them instantly, saving that fleeting moment of clarity. Now, for leads that go cold, the data tells us that a single text isn't enough. Instead, a structured two-touch AI outreach sequence works significantly better. It captures people who just needed a second chance, but without overwhelming them. Look, the stats say 50% of sales leads are never contacted a second time, but persistence is absolutely vital here. A single message often underperforms just because people miss texts, or maybe they weren't quite ready that first time around. By using a two-touch sequence, an initial message, and then a low-pressure check-in a few days later, you respect their space while systematically working an entire list of cold leads at scale. And let me tell you, this persistence pays off remarkably well. Optimized outbound AI text re-engagement campaigns are hitting an incredible 22% engagement rate on dormant lead lists. That is nearly double the industry average. Most treatment centers have databases full of people who inquired once and went quiet. But they aren't dead leads. They're just people who didn't get a timely response or weren't quite ready yet. Text messaging is uniquely powerful in this space because it lets a person reply privately without the pressure of a live phone conversation, which is exactly why it yields these massive double-digit re-engagement rates. What's really amazing is everything a properly configured AI can handle, and to be clear, this doesn't replace human staff at all. It handles instant response times, multilingual support, and sophisticated objection handling that perfectly mirrors how people in crisis actually communicate. An AI agent doesn't sleep, it doesn't take lunch breaks, it delivers sub-2-second response times around the clock. If your community has a large non-English speaking population, the AI seamlessly handles intake in languages like Spanish or Russian, so you never lose an admission to a language barrier. And when cold leads reply with common objections like, I can't afford it or I'm just not ready, the AI uses built-in frameworks to navigate those concerns naturally before transferring that qualified lead right over to a live human counselor. Section 4, Compliance and Integration. Okay, let's dive into the final, absolutely non-negotiable step here, ensuring this automated rescue system operates safely within some very strict healthcare regulations. Because dealing with behavioral health and addiction treatment means you are managing highly sensitive protected health information, or PHI. You can't just plug in some generic off-the-shelf chatbot to call it a day. No way. To protect patient privacy and avoid massive legal penalties, any AI system you use must include full HIPAA logging, a signed business associate agreement, or BAA, and strict data encryption. You also need mandatory carrier registration, known as A2P10DLC, otherwise the cell carriers will just block your text outright. And for substance use disorder facilities specifically, the system must navigate 42 CFR Part 2 privacy considerations perfectly. In this space, compliance isn't just a nice feature to have, it is the entire foundation. Furthermore, your AI answering system has to sync directly with your existing CRM or electronic health records system. It needs to automatically generate lead records, attach call transcripts, and queue up follow-up tasks for your admissions counselors by the time the morning shift rolls in. If your AI isn't talking directly to systems like Keepu or Salesforce, honestly, it's only doing half its job. Without that integration, your human staff has to sit there manually entering data from overnight calls they didn't even take. That creates lag, it creates errors, and ultimately, it drops the very leads the system was built to catch. A properly integrated system means your team walks into a neat, prioritized morning briefing fully ready to help patients. Knowing that every missed call is a missed admission and quite potentially a lost life, you really have to ask yourself, is your facility truly ready to respond when it matters most? The math of the 5-minute rule is absolute. The human cost of a 42-hour average delay is completely devastating. But the technology to close that gap, it exists today. It operates in milliseconds, it speaks multiple languages, and it never, ever clocks out. So take a hard look at your own systems and consider what happens in that incredibly narrow moment of clarity. If that phone rings tonight at 2 a.m., will your organization be the one that finally answers?